Good morning. My name is Mark, and I, together with my group mates, will be discussing to you about the topic preparation, assessment, and evaluation of instructional materials for children with special needs. Now, let's travel back to time. Now think about the years when you were still a student. Can you remember the things that you were using to learn? Or can you remember the things that the teacher were using to teach? Can you remember those manila papers, markers, acetates, and etc.? Name them. And think about the things that you are using now as a teacher. Which is more effective? Now, let us watch a short video of what was teaching before and what is teaching now. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the discussion.
Left and right confusions are frequent learning handicaps.
Some of the children achieve the most astonishing results. If you can't use your arms, it doesn't mean you can't paint. That is, if you have the determination that Kenneth has. Many of his paintings show fine promise, thanks to the great encouragement he's received here. Rather a different style of painting, but then it has rather a different purpose. This boy is not physically handicapped. He's one of the children cared for at Crowthorne Special School at Edgeworth in Lancashire. Painting helps to give these children confidence. Freedom with brush and paint and encouragement to produce bold, vigorous results is just one way of helping to banish the feelings of frustration that these children tend to have. Lots of physical energy. At their games, these children appear perfectly normal. You wouldn't imagine them to be different in any way. In school, they're much less self-assured, putting words against the objects they represent. The staff make up all kinds of aids to help them. But however imaginative the methods used, book learning remains hard, slow work for these children. They're better at the practical things, and the best hope of fitting them for a useful future is to give them a practical training. Edgeworth has a well-equipped metal working shop. It's probably too much to hope that these boys will make first-class craftsmen, for few possess the necessary ability. But they do learn to handle tools, which gives them confidence and helps them to earn a living later on. These boys are making a wrought iron communion rail for the school chapel. They're taught pottery as well. In all these activities, they need skillful leadership. They will rarely tackle things on their own. With encouragement, some of them turn out very nice work.
Instructional materials provide the core information that students will experience, learn, and apply during the learning situation, especially in school. They hold the power to either engage or demotivate students. This is especially crucial in special education, which relies on a thoughtful and complete collection of instructional materials that students will access, explore, absorb, and reference as they proceed in the learning timeline. Therefore, such materials must be carefully planned, selected, organized, refined, evaluated, and used in the class for the maximum effect. The planning and selection of instructional materials should take into consideration both the breadth, depth of content, and appropriateness or suitability so that student learning is optimized. Before we proceed to the main topic, we will define some terms that we will encounter during the discussion. First is preparation or planning. Preparation or planning is the process of setting objectives and determining the means of achieving the objectives. It entails deciding in advance what to be taught, how to teach, when to teach, who is to be taught, and the evaluation of the recipient. Second, assessment. It is the systematic collection, review, and use of information about educational materials or programs undertaken for the purpose of improving student learning and development. Third, evaluation. Evaluation is the collection of, analysis and interpretation of information about any aspect as part of a recognized process of judging its effectiveness, its efficiency, and any other outcomes it may have. Last but not the least, instructional materials. The term instructional materials are not limited to printed materials and multimedia materials, and it shall include materials used in the classroom and available in the libraries.
Before we start our main discussion for today, I would like to present some articles or concerns regarding the problems or inadequate special education services throughout the country. According to Dr. Teresita G. Inchong, she cited some besetting concerns, and one of which is the lack of support services, which includes provisions of instructional materials, assistance, devices, and essential equipment. Admit it or not, one of the many problems facing the Philippine education system is the lack of materials, which is very important to aid the needs of children with special needs. In today's discussion, we will cover different topics or answer different questions regarding how to assess and plan instructional materials for children with special needs. And these important questions includes importance of instructional materials, who can receive accessible instructional materials, how to select the accurate assessments or material potential for helping specific learners meet their needs, who decides if instructional materials are needed, and how is the need for accessible instructional materials documented. What are the importance of instructional materials or instructional resources? Instructional resources are very important for effective teaching and learning in all institutions, whether you're teaching a special educational needs children or you're teaching a normal student. It facilitates an enhanced learning process. This is why it is very important to make instructional materials available to all group of learners, especially physically, mentally, or emotionally challenged, to make teaching and learning easy and interesting, and they also serve as complementary channels for effective communication in the classroom. Under the Individual with Disability Education Act, or IDEA, any student who receives special education services must receive accessible instructional materials when needed to make meaningful educational progress. This is part of the right to a free appropriate public education, or we call it FAPE, under the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. School must provide instructional materials in alternative formats to a student with disability if the student needs them to learn. Students with disabilities may need accessible instructional materials for a variety of reasons. A general indicator that a student needs accessible instructional materials is if the student understands the information that is presented in a book or other materials but cannot read or use the material on his or her own. Some information to think about when deciding whether the child may need accessible instructional materials includes the student's vision, hearing, physical abilities, reading abilities, evaluation results, and grades. There are some examples of questions to consider. Does the student have difficulty seeing the material, or if the student has a low vision or blindness? Does the student have difficulty physically manipulating the material, or it could also indicate orthopedic impairment? Does the student have stamina necessary, for example, sitting upright or alertness or other health impairments? Does the student have difficulty decoding or recognizing text? Does the student have difficulty with fluency, or does the student lose the place while reading? So these are the questions, or some questions, that we should ask ourselves in order to assess if the student needs instructional materials. How to select the accurate assessment of a material potential for helping specific learners meet their needs. So in order to assess an accurate material, we are going to know what type of a learner, a specific learner, are we going to teach. So there are characteristics to consider, and there are questions to answer in order for us to assess what type of instructional materials is suited for this type of learner. So the characteristic of a specific learner could be discussed in terms of instructional needs, such as the following. What does he need to learn? Where does he need to start? How does he learn best? What is the best way to teach him? Now that we know what are the specific characteristic of the children that we're going to teach, we are going to assess or learn the characteristics of the instructional material that we're going to use to teach the specific learner. So it's the same way, it's a similar way that we did. We're going to ask questions. So the following questions should be asked. What does it teach? What does the material teach? Where does it start? How does it make provisions for learning style? In what way does it teach information? Or does it teach the specific skill that we want the specific learner to learn? Here we're going to present a scenario of a specific learner, and we're going to learn how is the process of selecting an instructional material for this specific learner. Tracy is a 10-year-old and is in a second grade class, and her teacher is really having problems with her. Her teachers and parents thought that with 2 years in first grade, she would mature enough to be able to achieve on second grade work, but she isn't doing it in reading. This is the information which has been noted on her throughout the year. Tracy rubs and blinks her eyes often when reading or doing close work, and seems to find it difficult to distinguish between certain numbers and letters. She frequently writes letters and numbers upside down or backwards, such as B or D, B to D. She likes to hold books either extremely close or extremely far away. She listens well and remembers what she heard. Also, she likes to work by herself or with a small group. So using the instructional needs that we discussed earlier, we can apply them to Tracy's characteristics. So what is the best way to present the information to her using an instructional material? Since she is weak in visual skills but has a strength in hearing and listening comprehension and memory, some of the following types of formats might be used. For auditory reception, look for tapes or records on the desired skills. For an auditory visual approach, language master type materials could be used, or records and tapes with correlated worksheets, workbooks, or books. And to aid in visual discrimination, print materials should have been larger than usual size. So Tracy needs to have large print with clear black symbols and adequate spacing. Who decides if accessible instructional materials are needed? For any student who receives special education services, the need for accessible instructional material is determined by the student's individualized educational program, or IEP. An IEP member includes the student's parents or guardians. Parent or guardian can request a team to discuss the need for accessible instructional material or an evaluation. The team's decision that a student needs accessible instructional material must be documented in the IEP. How is the need for accessible instructional materials documented? The IE team should modify the IEP plan to include the types of accessible instructional materials that are needed, why they are needed, who are the resource organization or other provider of the instructional materials, and who are the person responsible to ensure that the materials are provided to the students.
This will help learners with seeing difficulty because they will be able to find this object and will learn to shoot the ponytail on the stick and let them count it. If learners with hearing difficulty do not hear what the teacher is saying, this instructional material will help them because they will see what is the teacher wants to convey. Zero, 1, 2. For learners with walking and moving difficulty, especially for learners who do not yet have the ability to count on their fingers, they can use it by folding the fingers on the picture and count the beads by separating them from just counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It can quickly understand and encourage them to improve their listening skills by learning the sounds of a word. Learners with talking difficulties do never get too shy of it. Ant, airplane, ambulance, the children are more noticeable and quickly captured by games. It also helps to comprehend them, the forms inside the box.
As our learners with special educational needs transition into adulthood and can hardly cope up academically, teaching life skills play a very important role to reach the tip of their full potential. Let's go then and learn. Smart Hands by Teacher Juvie. Good day! The subject that I'm going to teach is Transition Program for Learners with Special Educational Needs in the Livelihood Skills package. I'll be showing you some ways on how to recycle your old stuff into a new one. Let's get started! Welcome to the world of recycling old stuff. Let's go and explore! Questions are: can we create cool stuff from our old towels? How to make soft bath mat out of our old towels? Well, find it out and have fun. Just be focused, okay? The materials needed are the following: old towels, scissors, needles, threads, safety pins, ruler or tape measure, and marker. Kids, I have some gentle reminders. Be careful in using pointed materials so that you'll not be hurt. Ask the assistance of your parents, your papa, your mama, or guardians, your uncle, auntie, if you can hardly do it. Let's start, kids! Again, be focused and enjoy doing. Here are the steps on how to do the soft bath mat. Cut the old towels lengthwise 2 to 2.5 inches width. Put together the 3 strips of towel and sew the topmost part. I will just sew running stitches on each strip for it to be firm. Now for the enjoyable part, braiding the strips. Braid the strips of towel, and if you want to make it bigger, you can add some more strips. In sewing the braided strips, use double-threaded needle to keep them together as you start turning it around to achieve the desired size of your soft bath mat. Remember, make sure that you sew it properly in every one or two braided segments. Otherwise, it won't be that durable enough as you want it to be. Presenting the new soft bath mat out of old towels. Well done! Good job, kids! And now, it's your turn, kids, to make your own beautiful soft bath mat. Time to do it! Good job! Keep it up! Here it is, the new soft bath mat. Thank you so much, kids. Bye for now. See you soon.
As you evaluate instructional materials, the first things you are normally considering are: first, is it accurate? Second, is it relevant? Does it provide information that students need to complete your assignment? And third, is it understandable? Is it at a level appropriate for your students' current understanding of the topic or the concept? When evaluating instructional materials, consider the extent to which each is interesting, approachable, and engaging. This isn't about materials being entertaining. It is about whether it can spark curiosity and promote deeper thinking about the content. The more engaged the students are with the materials to provide for learning, the more they will learn. To encourage engagement, it is helpful to include a variety of types of materials in addition to text, such as images, charts, diagrams, audio, video, or interactive activities. When you provide with more than one way of learning a thing, it's more likely learners will find something that will engage them and help them learn. For your homework, please answer the following questions. What are the most important things to consider when using instructional materials? What are the challenges that you encountered in using instructional materials to children with or without special needs? Thank you for watching, and we hope that you have learned something from our discussion.